I hope you can't hear me breathing heavily on the mic. Howdy, partner. It's good to see you again. Welcome back to Stepping Stone Farm. My name is Patrick Dacey, and I have been farming here in Northern California, specifically Napa, California, Zone 9B to be exact, for around 12 years. And 5 years ago, I started this project, which is now Stepping Stone Farm. Started off as a rock wall project and eventually evolved into a 1 acre regenerative, no-till, biodynamic market garden. And that is quite a title for a market garden. But what that essentially boils down to is that all of our efforts and focus is on the life in the soil. How can we better improve the quality and the structure and the life found underneath the surface of the soil so that it can benefit the plants, the animals, the insects, the birds, which in turn benefits us, those who are eating the plants. The plants make us feel good, energizes us, and we go back to energizing the soil. Really beautiful cycle. I wanted to take you around and show you what we have going on this time of year at Stepping Stone Farm. And what better place to start than our cover crop patch here. Cover crop is, what'd you just call me? Cover crops are a collection of plants that have really unique characteristics in building fertility and soil itself. And it's always a great idea to give back to the soil after requiring so much of it during the main growing season. We're not adding any fertilizers or store-bought amendments here at Stepping Stone. We add biological fertility through the form of cover crops or good high-quality compost on top of our beds, even biological teas and ferments, because we find that biological inputs into a biological system provides the best results. And just look at the lush vigor and vitality of this cover crop. The field peas, for example, are both a cash and a cover crop. You can pick off the pea shoots here and enjoy them as a lovely salad addition or garnish to your pasta, pizza. Molto buenissimo. But it has a really nice grassy pea flavor to it. It gives you that little hint of spring while the weather is getting cooler and darker. It's a nice refreshing additive to your dishes. In our back block here, half of it being cover cropped, the other half we have our fall root vegetables. I decided to plant the first round of all of our fall roots in the same collection of beds because we can care and tend to the classification of root vegetables all in one area. It makes our workload a bit more efficient and effective. These plants right next to me are Badger Flame beets, a beautiful golden beet, really ideal for winter production because they become really sweet and tender in the cooler weather. In this bed here, where the beet germination wasn't as strong as we wanted to, we intercropped and we plugged in some lettuce heads to fill in the space to maximize the productivity of the bed. The bed next to me here is our winter carrot production, and if you ask me, the germination looks pretty good. This variety is called Napoli. These carrots will go on cropping now till the middle of winter, maybe even early spring. The great thing about growing carrots in the wintertime is that once you get them going, they're in the ground, they achieve this hibernation-like state, this purgatory state, where they're not actively growing, they're certainly not dying, their flavor is just becoming sweeter and the carrots becoming more tender as the season progresses. So if you can get your carrots or other root crops into the ground and get them going early enough, they'll just hang out all winter long. Everything inside the rock wall here was the very first draft of Stepping Stone Farm 5 years ago. And when we decided to start this farm 5 years ago, we made the conscious decision to not go about trying to kill any sort of life. And that even goes for the gophers, the moles, the pests, the aphids, all the things that really irritate the gardener from time to time. So in making that decision, our main approach to pest disease and pest pressure is first and foremost good soil practices, focusing on really good soil health, but additionally using row covers like we see here. This row cover that's covering our Komatsuna plants is called insect netting. The commercial name is called Protect Net. And the great thing about insect netting is that you can see what's going on underneath the netting. So there's not really a mystery as to how your plants are developing. And in front of me here, we have the first round of our garlic planting. And we can see that the garlic cloves are just beginning to pop their heads up, which is great. The bed in front of that one there is a succession planting of garlic. And oftentimes people don't succession plant garlic, having one planting and then another one a couple weeks later, but we're doing a bit of a trial here. I planted these garlic cloves just a few days ago before the super full beaver moon. The idea being that the full moon has a very influential impact on plant growth. Biodynamic gardening has a lot to do with the moon cycles and the position of the moon in the sky. I won't get into too many details, at least not yet, but we're going to see the quality of growth and taste and size of the plants between these two trial beds here. The one behind me is my go-to Halloween planting date, but the one in front of me here, it's a little later into the season, but we're taking advantage of the beautiful influence of the full moon on the winter garden. Each season provides certain plants with the potential to perform at the best of their abilities. Now try saying that 10 times fast. For example, the fall and winter season is prime time for brassicas. Brassicas being the family of vegetables that have kale and cauliflower, collards, Asian greens, all mixed together. In front of us here, we have a collection of green and purple Mizuna, it being the last planting of the fall and winter season. And although these plants look small, they're large enough now to hold their space, to hold their own as the daylight decreases, as the weather gets cooler, and they'll be harvested sometime around Christmas or thereafter. Brassicas also have a really unique ability to be frost tolerant. So depending on the extreme frost we get, usually not too extreme, we'll leave these Mizuna uncovered without a row cover now till harvest time. Behind me here are another form of brassicas. These are Japanese white sprouting cauliflower. The variety is called Song-JTS, and it is a beautiful, highly uniform cauliflower plant. All of our beds at Stepping Stone Farm are 48 inches wide. The wider beds allows us to cultivate more soil life and grow more different types of vegetables in a smaller amount of space. We're not allocating so much space to pathways as we are to available bed space. When you're stretched for the size in which you can grow in, which most people are, you're only limited to a certain amount of growable area. It's best to maximize the land in which you're growing into as opposed to the ground in which you typically walk on. For example, these fennel here is a variety called Perfektion, and my goodness, are they just perfection. Now, I'm not one to spread rumors, but it's been said that fennel can be allelopathic, meaning it prevents the growth of other vegetables around it if you were to intercrop with them. I've seen mixed results, but this season I decided to have a bed solely bulbing fennel, which they're certainly on their way. These fennel were started around mid-July, Fennel takes a little bit longer than most other crops to get started and get going along, but once they do, they're like a power horse. Now on the contrary, the bed in front of me here, we are playing with an intercropping combination. We have our scarlet tatsoi in the center, and we have our overwintered Tadorna leeks cropped in between. And intercropping, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's usually an amalgamation of trialing and erroring and seeing what works and what doesn't. For example, these leeks and tatsoi here, the leeks were planted first to get their roots into the ground and to get them established, because they do take a long time to grow. We want to make sure we give them the available space in TLC necessary to establish themselves. And as they establish themselves, they have a very upright growing characteristic, not casting a lot of shade for the available sunlight that this bed will receive. That makes planting in between them ideal. There's a lot of real estate available to take advantage of. So we popped in these pak choi here, and they have a bit of a more branching, sprawling growing habit as opposed to growing really high. So when it comes to available sunlight, which is a premium this time of year, they're not competing in that regard, they're collaborating. And as we mentioned, as different plants feed the soil in their own unique way, we have the allium feeding the soil life in its own way, the brassicas feeding the soil life in its own way, all being mulched by high quality compost on the top. Again, all of our efforts is focused on feeding the life in the soil. The vegetables that we grow are merely just a byproduct of our true work, the ecological building and maintaining of this beautiful natural world we find ourselves in. Biodynamic gardening categorizes plants into four main categories. There's fruiting crops, like tomatoes and cucumbers, flowering crops, like broccoli or cauliflower, roots and leaf crops. And in that way, depending on the category, you can tend to them all in the relatively same manner. The idea being, in this block here this season, we've planted all of our leafy green crops in the same area. So we can tend to their fertility in the same way. There's certain days of the week that we can harvest them to capitalize on the best flavor and storage. It streamlines our workload. Most of these leafy greens are considered a cut and come again type of harvest, where we plant them once at the beginning of September, let them mature, and then as the season progresses, we harvest the outermost leaves of the plant, like the Swiss chard here. We take the largest leaves, we'll bunch them up, and we'll allow the mother plant to continue on growing throughout the remainder of the season, which in this case can be towards early February. One planting will allow months of harvest as opposed to cutting out the entire plant and not having time or available resources, i.e. warmth and sunlight, to begin a succession planting. When plants are anchored into the ground, according to a no-till philosophy, their roots are feeding the soil. The more active plants we have growing, the more soil life we can feed. And as you can see behind me here, this block will be packed with living vegetables, living specimens, feeding the soil all season long. Now I know what you might be thinking, but Patrick, growing all leafy crops, that's growing one variety of vegetable. We can't feed the soil as diversely as we want. Oh, you young buck. I love the effort, but the general category are leafy greens. For example, radicchio are in their own classification of vegetable family. We have arugula underneath the insect netting here. Chard is of the beet family. The Asian greens are brassicas, lettuces, cabbages. They're all unique enough that this wouldn't be considered a monocropping, rather a diverse collection of crops that are all categorized under leafy green vegetables. The part of the plant that we eat are the leaves. For example, over here we have our winter and late fall radicchio. We're doing a bit of a trial. We have 4 different varieties here, And the only thing that gophers love more than haunting my dreams at night are the sweet, deep drilling roots of the radicchio and the chicory plant. Gophers are one of our heaviest environmental pressures here at Stepping Stone Farm. We're 1,400 feet up above the valley floor here in Napa, and the gophers have made their home here in the mountain. They are the dwarves of the animal world. But they're not here happenstance. We're not actively trying to kill them. They have a place in the ecosystem too. Their main source of protein are grubs. And if they're not eating the grubs, then the grubs might overtake our soil ecosystem and begin to eat our roots. Also, if we're not tilling, they're doing a lot of cultivation. They're doing a lot of heavy lifting on their shoulders. So I admire their efforts. But that doesn't say from time to time they do irritate me a bit by eating a lot of these radicchio. But it's a good lesson in patience and understanding my place in the ecosystem and how I can best steward the larger ecosystem. On this side of me, we have some arugula and some late season cilantro underneath the insect netting. And this time of year, flea beater loves to go after the arugula seeds, the arugula leaves. So that's why we have the insect netting covering it, just to give it a little bit of extra TLC. In about a week, we'll take it off and we'll begin harvesting. Behind me here is our rainbow chard, a beautiful, stalky, leafy green, best braised. You can eat it raw, but the flavor is really lovely when you cook it. The Japanese braising greens to my left here is a collection of komatsunas and pak choys and yukina, all really good vegetable leaves to lightly braise down. Our lettuce and leafy green bed to my left there is a collection of lettuce heads and Mizunas, really good cut and come again salad mix greens. We've organized our beds categories within categories, so when it comes time to harvest, we can also streamline that process. For example, when we put together our salad mixes, all of the salad leaves that are going into the mixes are located on one bed, so we're not hopping around from location to location trying to put together a harvest. Proper planning and taking the time to step back and see the farm as a broader ecosystem can really yield organized, streamlined results when it comes to the meticulous work that you perform day in and day out at the farm. The cabbages we have here in front of us are a very long-standing, long-maturing variety of cabbage. The lighter green ones being Filderkraut, the classic European conical cabbage that gets to be upwards of 12 to 14 pounds per head. That's so much food. That's so much energy going into each individual plant. I mean, look at the size of these leaves. They're just gigantic natural solar panels to fuel the necessary photosynthesis to produce such high quality cabbage heads. These were the very first fall plantings we did this year, starting all the way back in late June, early July when we started these seeds. They're about a month away. They'll be harvested around the holiday season, but they're really looking great. They're off to a very good start, and they're on the second half of their life here. The other cabbage variety next to them is a variety called Moretta cabbage. And it comes from small northern Italian villages in Italy. And it produces these gorgeous purple hued, deeply savoyed cabbage heads that also take around 120 days to maturity. Very long maturing crop, but with that patience comes high reward because the flavor of these Savoy cabbages are unlike any other cabbage I've had. As I mentioned, these plants have been in the ground since late July, started in late June. And since then, there have been a lot of opportunity for pests and disease and insects to make their way and have a day of it. But as you can see, there's not much to be seen as far as pest pressure or insect damage to these plants. The natural system is so nuanced and complex that it's hard to say exactly what's the cause of this beneficial result. But in the broadest terms, with our focus on the soil life, with our focus on feeding the quality of the ecosystem underneath the ground, that is able to support and provide all the necessary nutrients and vitality and defenses necessary for these cabbages to withstand a very long growing season with very minimal damage to show for it. These cabbages weren't covered with our traditional insect netting. They were just left to their own devices. And as we mentioned before, if we focus on the soil, then these cabbages will naturally adopt all the necessary defenses they need in order to thrive. And if the cabbages thrive, then their flavor thrives. And if their flavor thrives, we're really happy as consumers of the natural world. If we're happy, we want to feed the soil more to get similar results. And the cycle repeats over and over and over again. At least here at Stepping Stone Farm.